Welcome to Socializing Security, where every week we have a discussion about security, compliance, and beyond.
Our goal is to learn and grow by socializing each week's topic with each other, our guests, and with you.
A quick compliance note, this podcast is meant for informational purposes only and should not be considered legal or regulatory advice.
We're glad you've joined us, and we hope you'll learn along with us. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Socializing Security. Brian running solo this week, but with a nice surprise of actually having a guest with me. So I won't be talking alone to you through this episode. This week I've got Justin Keck joining us. He is the Director of Enterprise Security for a company called Inspire Security Solutions. We'll talk a bit about what they do. But their goal really is to help other companies have better security through things like penetration testing, really kind of helping the CISO do their job. I think we'll get into a little bit of how we see that CISO role evolving over time as well. So a lot of really cool stuff there. Justin comes with a lot of really great experience, as do most of our guests. It's just, it really blows me away about the level of experience these people have within the security space. Like a lot of security people I've known over the years, comes out of a long history with the Air Force. I think just the way that they treat and educate people in the Air Force is really leads itself to structured thinking and security first mindsets. He's had a number of other roles, a lot of them in kind of a consultant advisory type of a role. So his work at Inspire is really kind of right on the mark of getting out there and not just helping internally, but helping other people help their own internal stakeholders and partners. So what we're hoping to talk about is kind of the business aspect of the security role and how important it is for a CISO to engage with their peers, to work across all the different, tear down the boundaries that we artificially put up within organizations to make sure everyone is going for the same level of security, that everybody is focused on that same goal, and to kind of really be the advocate for the security within the organization. So really looking forward to his insight. Kind of having a broad experience across a lot of different customers is always really kind of cool because it helps to identify some trends, which I think we'll see some really cool ones there. So I'm going to bring Justin on now and have a great conversation with him. And we're back with Justin. Justin, why don't you give the listeners that aren't watching our video a quick sound of your voice by introducing yourself?
Yeah. Well, my name is Justin Keck. I currently am a director of security for Inspire Security Solutions. I know, big name there, but really it's we're called Inspire. A lot of things we try to do is inspire CISOs to any kind of work they need to do. So a lot of times we're kind of focusing on our CISO kind of team, like what does he need, he or she needs. And a lot of that is we do penetration testing. We kind of plus up any kind of force, multipliers they need. That means like staff augmentation, or they're like, hey, let's knock out this project that my team just cannot get to, it's like, hey, let's help do that. So we're kind of consulting in that area and help, the CISO role and team really advance in the stuff they're doing. So yeah, that's what I get to help out with.
No, that sounds like a lot of fun. Definitely a collection of people that need as much help as they can get these days. So fighting the good fight is always a cool thing to be doing. So in that front, obviously you talk to a lot of executive level type people, and pretty much anybody who's probably listening to this probably kind of knows that the role of the CISO varies pretty dramatically from company to company, is kind of just as an industry level type thing, kind of going through a little bit of a change as it becomes more of a true seat at the table these days. Or is that what you're seeing amongst your clients?
Mm-hmm. I think especially last year or so we had 2 years ago now, SEC requirements, kind of pushing out stuff, what we want to see, the 8K information that they have to store, but also you're seeing all this information from these podcasts like this or other news stories that are coming out about kind of CISOs being charged for things, obviously SolarWinds, the CISO Brown over there, but it's like other things like are coming up, more scrutiny, more focus, it's coming on. And I think a lot of these, the teams and people are talking about, literally they're trying to see, they're seeing this, like, I'd say environment change a little bit. As you said, like kind of the seat at the table. If we're going to be there, we better should be accountable with ourselves too. And how are we going to do that? How are we going to manage our teams? How are we going to manage these budgets, the projects that we have going on? And it's really about the business and
Mm-hmm.
how we're making that, whatever that business is, we're part of it. What it is. That's the kind of stuff, hopefully we'll talk about stuff today, is like, how do we really focus on that new kind of different environment? But it's all, just if you look at other executives, the CFO role and the COO of how they're doing operations, like, how are we integrated with them? How are we getting work with them? Because we are the business, we help that as well. So, a lot of discussions with people of, I think a common thing we say is what keeps you up at night, for risks, and how do we track that? And how do we know, definitely those risks are, we're thinking about them. They could be at different levels. What do we do with that? How do we keep track of that? How do we share that with, like the CISO and their peers? And how do we help, if they own certain things, how do we help them do that and bridge that gap? It's a lot of cross-functional, I think more eyes on our role, our type of role, more eyes on it and more scrutiny on it now, of how are we helping across the board, and coming to the table with strategy, helping out with strategy, development, how our marketing things. It's like, how do we get ingrained into this kind of thing to really help drive the business forward? So a lot of, like you just mentioned in the news, and also there's just people feeling like, oh, it's kind of changing, and what does that mean for us, and how do we kind of navigate that going forward?
Yeah, I mean, we've both been doing this long enough to kind of see that realization that the CIO in the organization, the person that's in charge of kind of the IT stack and all the data that it entails, going from the person that deals with the IT stuff, just barely out of the basement type of a role, that is going to be the person held responsible should something go south. And as we saw things go south and businesses actually get massively impacted by lack of availability of their systems, their data, their applications, that CIO role suddenly started becoming much more important. You start to see not just vendors having kind of a CTO role, but you're starting to see more businesses, more direct to consumer type of businesses having a CTO role as well. And they start to become, that you get to sit at the big boy table now.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas now we're starting to see that kind of same transition, I think, with the CISO role, being able to, okay, we realize now that our information is important, but we didn't realize how important it was to keep that data secure. And of course, part of that's compliance and regulations. Part of that's just the nonstop dripping of additional breaches happening and data getting out and all the bad press that entails. And now, like you said, actual actions against the CISOs, the people who are supposed to be the buck stops here, other than the CEO type of person. So now we're starting to see, the big girls table, including the CISOs as well. So yeah, it's interesting looking at things historically and seeing, we're kind of going through that same transition. I personally think that the kind of the chief data officer being a potential, the next one to come by, as we start to realize the criticality of that and how easily some of that data can be exfiltrated and leaked. I mean, we've already seen it a lot, but it goes beyond just the security aspect of it. It is, how do we deal with this data? How do we ensure that it's only used by the right people internally? It's not just about it leaving the organization. So it's kind of interesting to see that transition, for me at least, having seen it before.
I think that's why, like, you guys had you guys were talking about data strategy kind of with healthcare. You guys had that discussion. I thought that was really good too. And the same thing. So we're seeing these chief kind of like, security engineers, technology focused guys that, are overall our industry, kind of that CISO role, like what, 15 years old, maybe? It's just like young,
maybe
compared to all these others, and how we're going from that like technical, hey, you need to make sure you can speak to the business, vice versa. There's some roles now that are kind of growing in that. Like, I don't know if we could get into that too. There's like this BISO role, it's a BISO role. You're like in between business IT. You're trying to help make sure that security is going through with projects and things like that. But it's like now the CISO, he needs to make sure he's speaking to the business and how that works. So a lot of business acumen has been like growing, a ton of how do we build those relationships? Who are we talking to? How do we communicate that is really big. So a lot of times, we'll use presentations, we'll share things. I think sometimes we do, technology and the stuff that we do it for our sake. We do it for security's sake or IT sake, our tools, our things. And we show these measurements, we show these risks. But if a CISO is talking to his peers, we can show, certain things. Let's show graphs and numbers and things, but really it's like, let's get rid of that sometimes. And let's have a conversation. What do you care about? What are your critical things? How can we help do that? Yeah, I have some numbers that shows kind of how we're trending, and we're trying to show things like that. If it's high enough kind of level, there's other groups that share that kind of stuff too. So it's like, oh, cool. Let's match that. How do we talk to them about what we're spending and what the risk is? And again, it should be a conversation with all of us. Like, it's a business decision in the end, and how we manage that risk, and how can we as CISO kind of roles help in that. And I think like I mentioned, communication, a business kind of executive acumen overall, taking those guys out of the trenches. If you grew up, being a technology engineer, now they're pulling you into these different roles, and people have been doing it for, like a while now, but still it takes some kind of the technique that we're learning and to have that, the CISO to really have impact and, really help grow like, the influence we want to see too in that area, and builds confidence with the CEO who you're reaching. I think when you're mentioning like the CIO change that happened or is continuing to happen, a lot of times CIO, CISO really work hand in hand, or sometimes I've seen some where they're flip-flopped. CIO reports to them, the CTO managing that, or you could be like in legal. There's so many different kind of areas across the board that our roles are kind of in, and that where does security kind of fall to, and how the company looks at it. And that's the big thing too when we're talking about like consulting side, working with different companies. You see all different types of how they kind of implement the work they do. What programs do they actually have? There's not really kind of a set. Security operations, I would say that's primarily you'll see that with the CISO, but other programs I've seen like privacy, identity access management is huge. And then now what do we do with the data governance? Like you mentioned, like, don't they say, all these different battles they've had, like content is king, for all our different streaming services. All that's like data, right? Data is king. And how do we protect that? Where when it comes in, where it's going? Big area right now, you mentioned, the different vendors out there. So vendor risk management, even watching extended from that is your supply chain. How are we doing with that? Because we're so reliant on some of those. Recently we had a big one on the East Coast or across the East with a big AWS. And there's a lot of people at Azure, AWS, Google. If that's your core thing, what happens when that goes down? We see, even if it's another little app, a different app goes down, it's like we're really relying on that external stuff. And I think the companies are looking at CISOs like, hey, how do we evaluate them, do business with them, that kind of thing. So man, it goes data, a lot of stuff you're just mentioning, and it's good. Like it's so broad too, I think,
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm fond of saying security is everybody's problem. And you're kind of encapsulating the challenge of that phrase, which is that means you got to work with everybody at some level. And that's always been one of the things I've loved most about security is that it touches everything, which means you kind of have to know a little bit about everything. The security people that I've kind of looked at as someone to achieve to be are those people that are like, I know about this thing, and I know about this thing, and I know about this thing, because at some of the interaction of those is where security really starts to happen. But also having to know enough about all those different pieces to put together. And that's always been like growing up as a virtualization admin myself. I had to learn networking. I had to learn storage. I had to learn servers. I had to learn all these different pieces. I started playing with the APIs because I had a developer background. Like it was a nexus of all these different technologies that had to work together, which, has always been like the infinite curiosity type of thing that I think is what makes successful IT people.
Mm-hmm.
means that you have to be, you have to know enough about business to talk to the CEO. You have to know enough about finance to talk to the CFO. You need to know enough about technology to talk to the CIO. And that becomes that CISO's role, is to work between all those groups to make sure, A, you know what they need, B, you know what they have that needs protecting. It's the whole know what you have is the first step of security. And to be able to have that communication with them, to not only be able to talk to them about what they need, but also to translate the IT security speak into their language so that they can
Mm-hmm.
understand it.
Oh yeah.
Which just kind of gets into the whole enablement side of things and training. Is how do you tell an accounting person that security is important, and that it's critical that they stop and think, and that they watch out for phishing attempts, and that
Mm-hmm.
sure, you think you are a small piece of the puzzle in this company, but you are still a route in.
Oh
And you
man,
have to
yeah.
have that same level of that same conversation at every level, all the way up to the CFO and the CIO and the COO, to be able to help them understand that, so that they can create that culture within their organization, but also to get them to understand that they need to partner with security in order to make all these things connect appropriately. And
Yeah.
so that level of communication is so critical, and is definitely a big part of successful CISOs these days.
Yeah. I think communication, like number one, like you mentioned, and I have like this sticky note. Let me pull it off here. Understand the business. That's
Yep.
like one of them I have on here, and it's so much like you said, because you go to, you said the different departments, but being in security, like I have, I got, so I didn't mention this earlier, but it's like I was in the Air Force for over 12 years. And then, I've been in cybersecurity for about 17, almost 18 now. It's crazy. But it's like that type of, broad experience from military, but now I did consulting and other companies, healthcare, all over the board. And it's like one thing so constant and all that was, if we need to get something done, it was like, my leadership would say, you kind of do it at the lowest level you can, right? Whatever level you're at, work with your peers, let's get it done. And I feel like that same thing with us now is like, we're, get whatever we can done at the lowest level, but it means you get out there, you're talking to your other groups, other departments. Like we shared one of the things that helped a ton that I've done or try to employ is working with those other departments. Either, we have some kind of free time where we share it, but really what was effective is we jump into some of their other meetings that they have, regular team meetings, and we jump in for like 5 minutes, 10 minutes. A lot of times we'd share something. I wouldn't do like every month. Sometimes for every month, people would request it. So we'd come in and share things if they're excited. But it's awesome. But it was like every quarter, because it does take time for us too to go there and set up stuff. But it's something we want to do. It's kind of our security branding time,
Yeah.
where we get to get a face to the name that they've seen versus this like black hole they don't know. They just get this warning like, hey, you missed this phishing thing or whatever. It's like get a face of the name, talk to them. Hey, how can we help you? And like usually share something and ask them questions that they have. And you mentioned some of these like groups, like, they're not thinking about it, but one of the big ones we had previously was the customer service. So they're on these calls talking to people, and obviously social engineering is huge in
Yeah.
those spaces, and things that, red flags, things to watch out for, the fake baby crying in the background, like, oh, I need this, please unlock my password, kind of thing. That happens, more than we wish it did, obviously. And that's
Yeah.
the training, we're like, continue to train on that. And to share things. And people would bring ideas up or just share stuff like, hey, I had this person do this, or they asked me about that. And it's like, oh, great. The biggest thing, we're having the conversation. We're talking about it. You guys know where to go to if you do have a question. So being available is that way, but also we are across the board, every department. How can we help all those? You've mentioned you worked in some like small kind of startups, so it's like there,
Hmm.
obviously we're in the hat for the whole thing.
Yeah.
And then you go to these big organizations where it takes a while to kind of crawl through the department because there's so many.
Hmm.
um but like that's why I keep saying it's like kind of like our security marketing, security branding. It's the culture we bring. It's like, hey, the whole culture we want to do is, how do we make sure we're doing the most efficient way to get to what we need to do as a business. That's the fun part to me. I get
Yeah.
excited when I get to talk to other groups, learn more about process. What I think that's obviously the key for what is your main thing you're trying to do. How can we help you do that? Um, Talk with them, right? Having those conversations.
Yeah. I like that you use the term kind of branding the security team,
Mm-hmm.
and personalizing them, like making them people. I guess they're
Yeah.
not just the people
Like
on the
they're
other side
people
of the phone
too,
that say no.
Brian. They're people too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I've seen that work very successfully. You know, we've had conversations on the podcast before about the IT support team having an open office. Like, don't close
Oh
them
yeah.
off. Let them be available. Let everybody walk up and just say, "Hey, I just need this cable." And don't put up a, "Oh, well, no, you need to go back to your desk and you need to open up a ticket and we'll get it to you in 2 weeks." Like,
I've seen that a
you've
lot.
got to make it, you got to make the right way the easy way
Oh, I like that. Yeah.
one of
Mm-hmm.
those concepts that I look at with security. You know, there's the picture of, hey, here's the sidewalk is a right angle, and the hypotenuse of that triangle is the people walking across the grass because they're taking the short path and
Mm-hmm.
it's available to them. So they take it. Guess where the sidewalk should be?
Yeah, I
Um,
love those memes like that too. It's like the
yeah,
gate that you're talking about, and then everybody just goes around.
it goes
There's
around
always
it.
a little route. Yeah,
Yep.
there's so much like that, and it's like we make it so hard. You got to take this thing, but people's like, whoop, they go around. And it's like, oh, we lose it, right? And then you have shadow IT, and now we have
Hmm.
so much shadow AI. It's like
Yes.
make this, yeah, kind of security by design. Hopefully, we're way like they called that whole thing was called like shift left.
Yep.
Let's get over there. I forgot which way it looks like on a camera. It's like shift left. How are we in there from the beginning? You know, and how can we help you? Because then we just want to help you speed up what you're doing. You know, I agree.
Yeah, yeah, and that's where, like, I wanted to kind of hook on that branding a little bit
Mm.
and ask, kind of, as you've helped customers, multiple different customers, like, what have been the most successful approaches to that? Like, if I'm sitting here as a CISO or CIO and I want to make sure that my help desk team, my security team, my SOC team, you know, those people that may oftentimes be considered the person I'm going to call and know I'm going to get a no answer from them. What have you seen as the most successful ways to go out and help push that message out there, to humanize them, to kind of brand the team as a partner to the business rather than
Hmm.
a hindrance to it?
Oh yeah, that's good. So there's a couple different things I've seen or have done as well. One I like to, I don't know if we still, if you call that in your group, but a lot of times it's like there's security champions you could have. It's like a program we try to get different groups from different departments have this kind of additional, it's a kind of like additional duty, but really it's like we're trying to celebrate them. They're taking an extra step. They can use it for their annual reviews that they have, you know, because it's like they're doing other things engaged, and that person becomes kind of a conduit for their department.
Hmm.
So we did set up a security champions program. A lot of the development groups have they call a security champion. So if you like use that name, previously I like had that set up, and those guys were like, "Hey, you're using our name." I was like, "Yeah, it's the same thing."
Yeah.
But I was like, you know what? Yeah, you guys had it first here. How about security ambassadors? You know, we went through different names.
Hmm.
So it came down to security ambassadors. Security champions were specific for that group, which I see they had good training, they had good turnout, so things were going, and that's just for that dev group. But the overall security champions, I wanted different different groups. So like marketing, finance. So
Yep.
what we did, we had like about 12 people previously in this one kind of security champions group that I had, and a lot of them were from IT. And my CISO at the time was like, we need to target them because they had this kind of like feud a little bit.
Yeah.
You're in IT. I know, you know, it's like, hey, you're asking me to do this. I'm doing that. You know, like kind of the little things. So, hey, let's bring some of these guys. Let's have the conversation, kind of thing we've been talking about. Let's mix it up. Let's have them come over where we could share stuff. They could bring stuff up too, and then they'd go back and be that, you know, like it says, an ambassador. They know kind of where to go to find information. You know, because some of their team was just mad about like, oh, you're changing these things. So it's like, well, now we have, you know, where to go to see kind of how we're aligning with you on things. Oh, better way to go. That helped them out. You know, they were able to share. It's like that was a huge example of the security champions, and we ended up actually hiring in our security team 6 of those security champions.
Yeah.
So a lot of people too that are like interested in security. Maybe they're in a different group and they become a part of it, and then all of a sudden, you know, they try to find a way to maybe be hired because we know them or we've worked with them. Hey, this role opens up. You
Yeah.
might want to jump in and be that, you know, good experience. Plus, they're coming from a different experience, different background. So definitely, like you mentioned too, all the different things you've done. It's like awesome. take all that experience, let's continue to use it and grow on it, so Security Champions program has probably been really good to kind of
Mm-hmm.
sharing that brand, different groups. I did have one of my marketing leaders when I first was presenting this to him, like, hey, we'd like to work with somebody from your team, that somebody would like to do it. And he's like, no. Like, I don't want to waste that time. And I was like, oh. Then I was like, okay, so I got shut down like the first time. And I was like, maybe it's just it wasn't my story, or it wasn't a right story that hit him of why we needed it, right? And that's the whole thing of, like we talked about CISOs before, it's like the story we're sharing to the different businesses to help them. And that's, again, we're sharing the message of like whatever product and things we're doing, how we're trying to help secure that, and how we can be in your process. We're not trying to slow you down. We're trying to make it so with these security things are there, so you're not reworking or delaying hours, that kind of thing. So I had to kind of rework my story to help kind of with that guy for that example. But it's like, that happened all the time. People just didn't see it, so you have to kind of, hey, why? How do we do this? And I think that's a big thing we're trying to do in our security world, anyways. You get tied to a story, tied to the business, tied to business operations, and how to do so. The Security Champions program like that was awesome. We did some where the branding of, they kind of shared a security kind of marketing article that would go out, and that was for kind of more external facing, but it's also internally, hey, to show these are things we've done, things that we've accomplished, especially anytime we did really well, like maybe with some audits and risk assessments that we had.
Mm-hmm.
And certain departments you knew were kind of lower before it increased. Hey, let's go out there, let's give them some kudos and talk about it. And people love that. We just actually, one of my clients, we just did that. We had finished a risk assessment, and this one group lowered the risk by a couple things they added, like we were talking about like access control and things like that, which was awesome. And we're send him a note that he could share with his boss and his leadership, because the project they did helped. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, let's share that with them. Then that was good for them, it's good for us. So it's another, just the culture we're trying to set is in that marketing, I think. And I think every time we go somewhere, just like when I was in the military, you wear that uniform, everybody recognizes, oh, you are part of that service. It's like wherever you go, that's who you're doing. So if you're the CISO and you're trying to set a culture, hey, your team, you want your team to be helpful, supportive, trustworthy, we're with integrity, our tools, we're trying to do the best we can, our platforms, that's what you represent, wherever you go. And to me, that's like good branding. It's like, that's what we want. That kind of culture is fun to be around and fun to be part of, and it grows that way,
Yeah, this group of people is fun to hang out with. They've got lots of really cool stories to tell, and you could trust them to guide you the right direction. And they're there to help you, help the company, help everybody to be better, to be more secure, to protect our customers, to protect our data, to protect ourselves as employees of this company. Therefore, you get that camaraderie, you get that we're all in this together aspect of things, which, that's why I love startups, is because you kind of have to drop all. I love the multiple hats thing, but I also love the camaraderie you get of, we all have one goal and there's only a couple hundred of us. And if we don't all row together, we can't afford to have anybody miss rowing. And so, we make sure everybody knows exactly what's going on and the right way to go is, so that it works together. And that can be harder. That can be really hard to do in a large company. But a company like a security awareness team, whose job is to go out there and make those connections, or a CISO whose job is to bring across that boardroom table, has a lot of power to be able to do that, to try and build that culture that I think is super important in that space.
Oh yeah, I think one thing it reminded me too when you're saying that is, a big organization or small organization is, like you said, the culture you bring. We had coins, like our round metal objects, RMOs, they call, in the military, like coins would give out to certain groups that are part of, so security champions, they would get this thing, it's like, oh, it's kind of a cool, unique thing that we try to do. I mean, there's a lot of different ways that companies do that. They had, badges for certain things, you can give to people, but it's kind of, oh, you're part of this group, you're part of the thing. And plus that would kind of go out to the different groups so that people see it. A lot of times I do actually other kind of marketing, kind of like advertising. We had a little thing, like a lot of times it was like OPSEC, operational security kind of stuff. And they have posters of, don't do this certain thing or help with this thing. It's like, oh, just little reminders we could do all the time to help. Maybe there's little fun things that your group, the company does, that'll be help and kind of spread the word out,
Yeah. I love that. As somebody who works in marketing and understands the power, the value of marketing, but also as somebody who used to make fun of marketing back in my admin days. The fact you kind of keep referring to it as marketing of the team, I think, is super important, because we all do marketing at some level. We're marketing ourselves, we're marketing our kids, and whatever they may be selling that particular week for whatever club they happen to be in. It's the whole you're a cheerleader for somebody at some point.
Yeah.
We're kind of coming up on time, but I want to dig a little bit more into the BISO role.
Oh yeah, we mentioned a little bit.
Yeah, because you mentioned that, and that's probably a new term for most people. So can you maybe define what that is, and where you see both it showing up in the organization and who tends to be coming up into that role?
Yeah, that's a fun one. I feel like I've only seen it maybe 4 years now. It's pretty, to me, it seems like a young role, but there's different names. So it's Business Information Security Officer or something like that. So it's usually that. So it's tying in the CISO kind of role, like helping that message that about security, how we're protecting, but also the business obviously in the front part of that, which is a lot of times these guys are working with the business on either projects or they're the main liaisons. I've also seen called business security architects, but they sit as this liaison between these things. So sometimes a certain organization, a bigger project, they're on this kind of project, they're just helping with those requirements, audit, just to help that overall team be able to match with those. And they have their point with them. They have that person's with them totally on that team. So they're like dedicated, focused on that. A lot of times we have project managers. They're like kind of dedicated to that. Same thing with this, but they're just influencing or helping to share and bring awareness about security and that CISO's message. A lot of times, these people can be, brought up from different technical things or business things, because we can still continue to share, security, like they can bring that stuff up. So it's really good kind of a mix that a lot of people can do. And I've seen it grow a little bit. There's a group, we've done a couple like, trainings on these things, and other industries, and like kind of this role has grown. You'll see some on LinkedIn now, for this type of role, but it's so critical now having this, some of the, again, the CISO, we want that person be able to talk different. You can talk technical as you need to get to for a specific thing that's going on, and then be able to figure, okay, how do I share that with other groups, other departments? Maybe sometimes you have to brief that to the board. They don't want to know how many things you're blocking. They want to know what you're doing about it. What's the other kind of strategy around it? Not the deep details. But then this BISO role is really is that lower level that helps manage that things, like we talked about too, is like managing things at the level you can. That role is really helping closely with the business, working with them, like the businesses in different departments. And usually, yeah, any type of, I've seen different ranges. This could be kind of more like a junior, senior kind of level, but also like director level. I've seen a couple different views of this type of a role used. And I just think that type of thing is really effective, because again, we're trying to share branding, get with the team, get with other teams of sharing security, how we're understanding business, because these guys should also know more part about that specific part of the business and be able to relate that back to security for some reason, to help with controls that we need to do or other kind of audits that are coming to help share that. Yeah, so that's cool. Another big kind of a newer role, I would say. It's not too old that I've seen, but it's I don't know, hopefully I can't tell like how common it is, but definitely that liaison is they're called by different names, but we definitely need them, and it's kind of definitely a fun role to be in.
Yeah, sounds like it. Sounds a bit like an acknowledgement of the CISO's role is almost too big for one person in a lot of organizations, where you got to manage down to, an entire organization of people doing security, which is actually a part that I've always found kind of interesting, reporting up into the CISO, all of these people, that like sometimes a very massive organization, while at the same time needing to be a highly technical person in most cases with CISOs these days. Again, similar to the CIO role, like it was always a highly technical person until maybe the last 10 years, 15 years or so, when you start to see more of a business focus there.
Yeah, that's nice too.
Because you've also got to manage up to the CEO and to the board, as well as horizontally to your peers at the C-suite table, and acknowledging that that's a lot. for one person to hold in their head. That there does need to be a bit of a translation, a bit of a someone needs to focus down and someone needs to focus up and across, because there's a lot to be done there, especially when you start thinking about audits and things like that involve many, many different teams.
Yeah. And again, it goes back to just overall how much communication, how are we communicating? Because it's really easy to be siloed and sit in your own little area, certain groups. Oh, we don't really get out much, but really how beneficial that is,
Yeah, definitely.
Sharing.
Cool. Well, we always end our interviews with the same question, which has always opened up a lot of really interesting variations on the same theme. And it goes back to Milu hearing from a CIO at one point that they thought that the fight for security was done, or the fight for privacy was done, and it's now just about security. With all these breaches and stuff that happen, like, give up on your privacy. Like, just try to keep the locks on the doors as best you can at this point. So we like to ask all of our guests, what do you think about that? Like, do you feel like there's still a fight for privacy to be done there, or should we just give up on protecting our social security number anymore and just try to protect just data in general?
Oh man, woo, that is a big battle.
And there's no wrong answer.
Yeah,
they're all interesting perspectives.
Of our I feel like I've actually had opportunity to work a few roles we work closely with privacy. So security and privacy, either part of my team or I worked really close with them. And I feel like it still is a battle. To me, the privacy, especially when I think of our kids and our children, and we recently had a big hack where they took a lot of our kids' data. And then now I'm like, well, we have so much information that, lost probably or in somebody's hands that they have. And now that's like the kids. They're kids. They don't have all the stuff yet, but they can track them till they're older. It's like, I was like, oh man, now we got to make sure we protect them. They didn't have a start with all this, like we do, or like we did things. We put something in this file. Yep. Sure, take my information, use it for marketing purposes or whatever it says in the back end. But it's like, man, I still feel that is such a big thing we're still trying to battle. And you'll see, I've seen so many states bring up their privacy rules that have come up recently. Way more. The past couple of years, privacy has just grown so much, like state by state. If we don't have like overall, I think GDPR really kicked that off a few years ago. I worked with a lot of people in Australia, and Australia's was really big. But it's so much of, I feel, we got to still work to protect it, because a lot of it is, what can we get rid of then, and have it in certain areas? How can we do that? So it is part of, I think that is kind of securing it, because you're, think of our data at a company. If they can't get to this email you have because you stored it off somewhere else or you got rid of it, that reduces that threat. It's like, maybe there's ways that we can kind of mix that up with, like, can we get rid of some of this where the stores that it is? Because there's a ton of duplicates. Who knows how many, copies of some certain things are. It's like, man, for me, the fight is still there. It's all a balance too. It's like, okay, how do we balance this privacy? Some people, I want to be able to know this thing so you can work well with this, but others don't. So how do we still battle that? We've had this discussion with my family and my wife the other day, and it's like, talking about privacy and data, and like, oh, what does it matter if somebody has this? Or like, oh, well, how can they use that? And just like adds another layer to something they know about you, or whoever that is and whatever their intent they're trying to use it. So I definitely come from the world we live in, being in the military, and now it's like, I definitely think those fights are good, and it is a balance for business and how they're using it, and what our future holds with that kind of stuff. And I just think of our children, our next generations, or other, like even our parents or grandparents, and how they're being taken advantage of. It's like, we got to protect that thing, because it's like what now and how strong the data is and where it's used and how that's just kind of elevated its use. Like we talked about earlier, like how strong data is in our day.
Very awesome.
Good question though, man. That's a thinker.
Appreciate that. Very thoughtful answer. Okay. Well, to close out, Justin, if people want to contact you, have any more conversations with you on these topics, share your contact information that you would prefer, and then any other closing thoughts you have.
Okay. Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn. That's kind of the primary one I share information on there too. If you just go info@Inspire Security Solutions, that's our website. You can that's an email, but you also just Inspire Security Solutions website, get a hold of us and can help out. So yeah, I'd love to.
Cool. Well, I really appreciate it, Justin, and
Good talking to you, Brian.
hope you have a great rest of the day.
Thank you. See you later.
Well, back from talking with Justin to do a quick little wrap up with you all. I really enjoyed that conversation. Justin and I had a really great conversation both before and after that recording. So really, really good person. So I was really excited to have him on. As he and I talked about off the air, friends of friends are the best people for us to get on this podcast. So if you or somebody you know would be interested in joining us, you think that they have a really great perspective. I'm a big fan of telling people, like, you are unique in what you know. Nobody else knows exactly what you know. So everybody has a unique perspective. Everybody has a unique set of experiences. We'd love to talk about those of you who are in security, kind of what you've done, and also those of you that may not be in security, maybe interactions you've had with security. Sometimes that outsider perspective is super, super valuable. But to get back to the conversation with Justin, some of the things I really took away from there that I really loved, and most of them I kind of mentioned along the way, but that kind of internal consulting, that business acumen that the CISO is really required to have these days, being such a critical aspect of it. No more, again, I drew this parallel with the CIO. I think the parallels are uncanny to me. As somebody who thought at one point that I'd end up being a CIO, the diversity is what gets you to that level. It's not so much about I'm the most technical person in the room, therefore I get to the top of the org chart. It's no longer about that. In fact, it's rarely that's what's going to get you there. It's usually hey, you've talked to other people in the business. You've worked across these boundaries. You understand what they're doing better than anyone else. Would you be interested in making that your job, making your job, doing all the things that you've done inside the org and then spreading that throughout the organization, helping other people understand what that's about. Of course, branding comes into a big part of that. The marketing aspect of things I did mention as I was talking to Justin, because that is so huge. Being able to promote that team, that security team, and what they're doing and what value they provide to the rest of the business is critical, so that everybody understands why they exist, that they're not just there to say no to everything you want to do, to try to be a roadblock, to try to get in the way. That's how that team can then be invited from the very beginning of a project to make sure that security is embedded in things. The security champion program I've seen in other organizations before, so I have seen that work very well. It's really about having that ambassador, having that person sitting there, one accountant amongst the other accountants that will say, yes, security is important. I've worked with that team and I understand why they're doing that. And here's the reason why. I've been that person. I'm not necessarily in a formal program like that, but to be the person to say, I'm trying to rationalize why they would do this thing. And here's why I think it would work. And I have seen that help people to be like, okay, I can accept this change because I can see that there's a route to why they would want to do that, what the purpose of this would be. So I think that's really cool. I would love to run a program like that someday. The other thing we talked about that I think sounds like a really cool role for me and the diversity and the variation that I've had over the years, that BISO role, that I know security. I may not be the most technical person, but what differentiates me is that I know the security side of things, but I also understand the business. And I have had success with that in the past, being in an IT analyst type of a role where I had to work with the business owners. Oftentimes they were within our IT organization, but to really talk to them and say, okay, now I understand what your group needs, what your accounting team needs and why they need it. Let me go back and design a system that will provide that to them, as well as all the other requirements that IT normally would have. That ability to just work with other people, to understand what they're going through, and then to use that to meld together with the other departments or the needs of the company overall, I think is a really cool sounding role, especially when you think about it as this is kind of a left brain, right brain type of thing with the CISO. If you have both roles sitting in the same organization, they kind of both looking at this. They're both trying to get to the same goal, but their focus on how they go about it is a little bit different. So a lot of really cool stuff. I'm really excited to kind of see how that role evolves in our industry over time, because I think it's going to have a really interesting impact as the CISO, as the security team gets more of a seat at that main table. So really cool stuff, Justin. We really appreciate you being on and for being willing to be a part of this. Look forward to talking to you again, Justin, but also talking to all of you that listen and watch us every week, or maybe listening or watching for the first time. We invite you back next week for another episode. And if you haven't listened to back episodes, we've got quite a few of them. I think this is going to come up in the low 70s at this point of number of episodes that we've had. So we've got a decent back catalog. If you enjoyed this conversation, want to listen to more, I invite you to do that and subscribe and listen to us every week. We'd love to have you, and we hope you all enjoyed and got something out of this. We'll talk to you all again soon. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Socializing Security. We hope you learned a thing or two with us.
If you'd like to continue socializing with us on this topic or have feedback, we'd love to hear from you on LinkedIn or social media. Just search for Socializing Security. Or you can email us at info@socializingsecurity.com.
Until next time, stay social and stay secure.